I see. So, ladies and gentlemen, we can't do it that particular way. I was testing that 1, 2, 3 before we start the show. Hey, Brother Justice. Hey, Brother Justice, how are you doing?
I'm doing.
This is the Sourceseeker Hour, our 78th episode, a very important subject in this times and all times, but especially right now. It just seems like everything is weighing on so many people. There's pressure coming from so many places. Over here, you have the Capitol riots, uh, people mad storming the Capitol, the heart of the democracy, and they had a certain agenda. It's making people crazy. And then we're living with the pandemic. So many things going on. And we get this constant drumbeat of coverage about the COVID crisis. I mean, it started in the beginning and it's kept rolling. We've talked about the coverage, just the coverage of it. But I hear all the time people saying, I'm so sick of hearing about this. I'm so sick of it. And it's making people crazy. And not to mention the changes that it has caused in psychological bearing of people, wearing the mask and then having the social distance, not supposed to gather together, not supposed to hug, all of these things that it is caused. And we are going to have a discussion about all of these things on this special show. I have Brother Justice with me on the Sourceseeker Hour, our 78th show. Brother Justice, would you introduce yourself? And ladies and gentlemen, we are expecting other guests to come aboard also. But we are so privileged to have Brother Justice with us. Brother Justice, please introduce yourself.
Peace and blessings. My name is Justice Payne Tyson. I am known as the neighborhood therapist from the Black Man Misunderstood podcast. I am a licensed professional counselor, and I own All Those Sweet Counseling here in Houston, Texas.
Thank you very much, brother. You heard my introduction. You heard what I said. It is stress a little bit more now? Does it seem? Are people telling you, hey, it's more than I can bear?
Yeah, to me, what I'm hearing over and over is that people are exhausted. And then on top of that, it's a lot of uncertainty. And then it's turning into anger. And then it's just leaving that confusion. People don't know what's left, right. This is just an unprecedented time for everybody. So it's just a lot of confusion, a lot of chaos. They tell us wear the mask. Now they tell us, recently don't wear the mask. It's just, it's confusing.
Definitely across the board. And the riot thing, it threw people for a loop in a lot of ways. And then, it brought about a little bit more tension. I think people did not realize that the tension was already on that depth from, some people who felt that they were not getting their just due or whatever the reason was. But have you heard any people saying they expressed, I can't believe this, and I don't know what's going on? Have you heard that?
So the majority of the people that I see, not to take away from any other hues, but the majority of people that I see are black individuals, and the common denominator I'm hearing is I'm fed up. We've been feeling like this for decades. Our grandparents are feeling like this. Our parents are feeling like this. And then for us to add coronavirus to it, I think it's a tipping point. It's only a matter of time before we boil over, and you can't shoo us, for so much longer. You know what I'm saying? So it's like I said, it's exhaustion on the mental health. But if you're talking about us as a culture, as Black people, we've been going through this. The coronavirus is just like the icing on the cake for as far as I'm concerned, me personally, in my opinion.
I totally understand. And I was just sharing with a person today about the spiritual nature of Black people, and that, you know, we've come through so much, and we had to have a spiritual grounding to be able to deal with all these circumstances. Some would say that that's a measure of providence for a new day. You can look at a lot of different aspects of it. You can say, hey, Black people are a special people, but even in these times, it's such a circumstance that is throwing us, it's making us a little bit more edgy. Now, we are probably in a better shape than some other communities, but we among ourselves in our own circle, we're a little bit more edgy. I know you've heard about the domestic violence rates, the divorce rates, all of those particular things that's going on. And within families, you know, having to be so close to, and then the money issues, all of those particular things. What have you heard about those aspects within the community and the people that you talk to?
So the first thing that's really, really prevalent is that couples and marriages, people are finding out the person that they love, they don't like. I'm just being honest with you. They love them, but they don't like them. They don't like all the character traits about these people. I guess because they're so used to going to work, leaving, and then they come home. You know, you don't have enough time to see those traits. But now, you know, you're forced in the house, in the home. You got to be with this person nonstop. And you know, it's like it's supposed to be a dream come true. You're in the house with your spouse, and if you have kids, you got your kids. But I'm hearing the kids are running the parents crazy. The spouse is running the person crazy, and it's like, I thought this is what you wanted. You see what I'm saying?
And let me say this, as a teacher, you know, on the one hand, we are concerned about, of course, COVID and being in that environment and all those things. And, you know, we saying, hey, you know, are you all going to ensure our safety? Are you going to ensure that we are taken care of? But then on the other hand, we have many parents, especially in my area, special ed, who say, hey, we need to get these kids back in school in person. So you have the conflict, you have the stresses on both ends. The parents with the kids at home, who normally not at home now, that may be affecting their work, being able to go to work and other things. And then, you know, you got the teachers saying, and society in general saying, hey, are we secure? So it's stressed so much around. And then I tell you this, Donald Trump is still out there. He's still out there. He's still saying that the election was stolen. And one thing is, the way he's saying it's stolen, it was stolen because of Atlanta, Philadelphia, Detroit, of course, a majority Black, the area that we're talking about, majority Black communities. So that aspect of it also. We have another guest coming in, and we're going to let her join. Then we're going to let her introduce herself. This is the Sourceseeker Hour, episode number 78. We're talking about stress and trauma from current events. Stress and trauma from current events. It was already enough stress. Now, I'm all for the 1,400. I'm all for the whole stimulus package. I think it'll help us have a little bit more, not have to worry. Some people, it's a benefit. They don't have the job anymore, and they just need something to survive. Those of us who have a job, I mean, it's been so much more because we have family members that don't, and we've had to help them. So it's helping us to catch back up a little bit. This is the Sourceseeker Hour. How are you doing, Sister Jennifer?
I'm good. How are you?
How are you doing? This is Brother Justice. This is our 78th episode. We have been talking for a while. Sister Jennifer, would you introduce yourself to our audience on our 78th show, Stress and Trauma from Current Events?
Yes, I am Jennifer Cain. I am the owner and primary clinician with Adorn Counseling. I am a licensed professional counselor, a licensed chemical dependency counselor, and a certified trauma and anxiety treatment provider. And I really, really enjoy the topic today because I think as Americans, as Black Americans, as Texans, we are experiencing a significant amount of traumatic events in the past year that can limit our ability to function at our best ability to function because of those experiences. So I'm happy to be here and to be here to talk about all the things that we can do that are within our control, because truthfully lately, not much has been.
And there is so much happening, as I talked about at the beginning of the show. You had the Capitol riots and the stress that came from that. And, we saying, what's going on? We've had the ongoing coronavirus coverage that, some people just say, I can't stand it no more. I mean, and then, you got money problems and all the other things and I was talking with Brother Justice about the family dynamics. He said that some people love each other but don't like each other no more. So I mean, God, how are we gonna get past this? I don't know, but we hope that days going forward is a little bit better than the groundswell that happened in 2020. We hope, and that's what we want to talk about. How can we get past some of these things? Brother Justice, you've seen in your community as a therapist, you said a neighborhood therapist, you've seen so many people talk about just what is happening. I mean, is this America? I heard one of the Capitol officers, he talked about those people coming at him and they was calling him so many names. And he just, is this America? Is this America? And he couldn't understand what's going on. And some people feel like that. It's just unusual. But at the same time, some of us realize that's always been there. Well, what have you heard on overall on those issues?
Same thing you're hearing, the same way he was feeling. But if you've really been paying attention, this is just America unmasked as far as I'm concerned. I mean, it's the
explain that a little bit further. Explain that a little bit further, brother.
So I feel like America's been wearing a mask. You have your blatant racism, but they're hiding, So it's basically that old concept where they throw the stone and they hide their hands. We've been dealing with that forever as a community. Now, when Trump got in office.
Do you think that, yes, I agree with all of that, and the handwriting has been there, but at the same time, we've made tremendous progress as a people. We have to admit that, despite all the circumstances. And I go back to what I was saying earlier, that we're spiritual people and we have some unique talents, not just in athletics, not just in entertainment, or we have unique talents in our core and in our DNA. So it is better. And I think one of the big problems that made them crazy is they see it. So that community, the conservative community, they see it and they on edge. They see immigration happening. They see the Latin community becoming stronger, more political, and they feel in a sense of fear to a certain extent. And when people are afraid, how they react. What do you say about that, Sister Jennifer?
I think I do agree with a lot that has been said just now, but I'm an advocate of preserving my energy. I'm just going to tell
You're
you
who?
on preserving my energy. And I'll say that.
I
I'll give
understand.
you a little bit more information on what I mean by that, but I try to focus on what I actually can control and recognizing how I feel. With that being said, not unlike anyone else in the African American community or any minority community during this time, we don't feel safe for a lot of reasons. With that being said, I have to make sure that I'm mindful of not actually considering all these conspiracy theories or a way trying to predict what other people feel, but more of what I can do about how I feel and what I can do to make an impact on the community and the world that I live in and how I treat other people. Because I think a lot of what we're dealing with are a lot of apathetic, inconsiderate, selfish people.
Within our own community,
I,
within our own circle.
yeah,
Um,
yeah. Mm-hmm.
I mean, I think we still do not really know how to love ourselves. Now, somebody help with that. Somebody help to condition our minds against that. And it contributes to the stress, of course, because of the situation we're in now with the COVID crisis and having to kind of limit ourselves a little bit. I mean, the psychology of the things that's going on. But at the same time, I think as a community, we are starting to adapt and starting to adjust to the new kinds of challenges. What you think about that?
I do think that our culture has always been an adaptive one, but a protective one. And I mean, with the stigma of therapy in our community. And I know firsthand because that's what I do every day, how it is viewed as a deficit rather than a support. I only go to therapy, and this is a words that I hear a lot. People only go to get therapy when they're crazy, or you don't need somebody knowing all your business, or all those different things. But that's I think that's a cultural thing too, because of the things that we've experienced in our past and our current, and I understand that, but I think that we have to understand that asking for help is not a deficit, but it also displays a level of strength to be able to do so. I think being willing to learn something new and try some different ways to manage things, because if we're doing the same thing and expecting a different response, we insane.
We live in such a macho macho pseudo culture. Macho on the surface, but behind the scenes, not so macho. I mean, you have a culture where people are not comfortable saying I'm sorry.
I agree with that. I
So
think we are not comfortable with our
and it presents challenges. I've encountered that quite a few times, but it's something that is a part of society that you have to deal with. And there's so many challenges, the psychological things going on, and the stress that we see on the TV. Now, I watch a lot of CNN. I watch a lot of the news coverage and so forth. Now, you can just cut the TV off. You can do that also. But then, are you living in a vacuum? If the stress, say again?
I don't know if I agree about that one, but that's what I mean by preserving your energy.
Okay.
So you can watch the news all day and you learn nothing new, but a whole bunch of stuff that they want you to see. And I mean, the news's job is to show you the worst of the worst, right? And if you already get what you need to get from it with the information. And I can tell you personally, the day of the insurrection, that day, I saw, I knew I paid attention to my energy level. I noticed that I didn't have much after I finished my work, right? And I saw it on TV, and I felt like I was getting angry, just for all of the things that were happening. And so I looked at it and I was like, okay. And then every channel I turn to, every social media platform was talking about it. I'm seeing pictures. I was like, look, I got to go do something different. So what I did was I took a nap. Those always help. And I went and I looked at something like Netflix that don't have commercials. You know, I had to do that to preserve my energy, because all it was going to do if I kept watching it was make me more upset. And then I would, you know, start, you know, having all these biases in my head and all these other things, when it just, it's nothing that I could do. And I don't want to live in a world of fear based on something that is being reported to the media, to me from the media, in a way that is supposed to jar me, because that's what they're meant to do. I don't know if that made sense, but
I totally understand. We have a guest that is trying to get in.
oh,
I'm going to take just a second to help him with that. At the same time as I'm doing that, Brother Justice, you heard what Sister Jennifer said. She talked about the energy and so forth. What do you think about that?
Give me a second, that audio went out.
Okay, we got you now. We can hear you now.
Let me see.
Did you hear her comments?
I don't think you can hear.
Yeah, I don't think, I guess, okay, Sister Jennifer,
Yes, sir.
there is a lot of things going on though, across the board. And I just think you got to find a way to continue. I mean, so many people, if you can't do nothing about it, you can't spend a lot of time with it.
Yeah.
Give me 1 second. Okay. This is the Sourceseeker Hour number 7. Are you back, Brother Justice? Okay, he still can't hear us. Okay. Give me a second here. Let me go ahead and do this while we're in here. See if I can get in. 1 second. All right. All right. I'm back with you. I want to just make sure we continue going on. He's going to go out, come back in, and we're going to continue with the show. I appreciate it. I know you see a lot of different patients and so forth. Do you see young men with no, for instance, I was out downtown with my daughter, and so many of the young men that came up and asking for handouts had to be under 30. Do you see that out there? And we had the discussion on our show, and the reason everybody came up with is mental illness. Can that really penetrate in there that young of an age? There has to be an explanation. Why are so many young men falling prey to that? And I know that's not always been the case. Why is it starting? Because just 10 years ago, I didn't see it. Now, maybe my eyes were not looking at it in the best way, but what do you think about that?
I think mental illness is something that has been consistent, but I think stressors can incite more severe mental health concerns. I think this generation has a lot of difficulties with anxiety, interacting socially, motivation, and substance use to self-medicate.
And I have to throw in there that, of course, the way society has been constructed, you just take the public education system, a lot of the information is slanted and always has been. And they do not necessarily get a true and accurate picture out of, I could talk about my own family and dealing with my kids and understanding what they're reading, and as a teacher also. So I do understand that. But at the same time, the young brothers have to learn how to have a cooperative relationship with somebody.
That's true. I mean, that's what I was saying earlier. Yeah, I agree.
I see that also, especially at least within their circle, within their family, you know, because I would think that the young brothers who are on the street would have a family, an uncle, a grandfather who would take them in. And the indication is that if they have not been able to pull that or to be able to attach themselves in that way, there must be a reason.
I think you are very much so right in regards to the importance of support. And I think that's a big stressor and difficulty that we face in our community. And I mean, in our culture. Um, but what I found, and I mean in Generation Z more specifically, um, they, what I've found, because a lot of my clients are from that generation, they have difficulties with just simple communicating their feelings, understanding their feelings, um, finding the motivation to put effort in things that don't give them immediate gratification. And I think all of those things contribute to the mental health disabilities that they have um, in this generation. Now, one thing I can say though is that they're willing to get the help then and more likely to do so than all the generations before, surprisingly.
So you're saying that this, even with all the things coming at them, our young people may be able to achieve more than the previous generations. Is that?
I said they're willing to find some other methods to care for themselves and do what's best for them in regards to mental health support than all the generations before them.
What different ways can they possibly, I'm just talking about for as far as mental health support. Of course, you know, what other different ways? I mean, I don't understand it. Are there different ways that they can find because they're technology savvy, or?
No, they're just willing to do it. They're willing to ask for that
Okay.
help. They're willing to say, I'm not okay in this space and I will get help for it. And other generations before them
The
are not as
stigma.
willing. That stigma, what I was talking about.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah,
Okay. Now, yeah, okay, I can see that.
that's what I mean.
I can see that aspect in a personal situation. I don't want to go into it per se, but I can see that. Whereas when I was a young man, I was shy, but I would still express a certain, probably because of my mother and so forth. My mother today, 92, by the way, she's 92 years old. Yes. And she always could cry at a funny story or a sad story. And I have some of that. And so I'm not like most macho guys. I'm more open and more, we'll come out with things a little bit more, even though being shy, I used to be shy. I'm not as shy today. I have to say that.
That comes with
I
time.
think everybody might know that, you know, but I used to be. That's why I started writing and so forth. Because of not being able to express the beginning of the Sourceseeker hour. When I first started, I was still had elements of that.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Anxieties, yeah.
Yeah, anxiety, being afraid. I remember a time when I was in college where I tried to say a poem and I stuttered through every word. Now that's in college. So I still had elements of that. And a lot of people out there, especially people who already have some difficulties, aren't the times just making it so much worse? Aren't the people that are already had conditions and the
Mhm.
different things, isn't things just so much worse for them now?
For, yes and no.
And probably that word worse is not the right word.
I don't think there's anything wrong with that word. I
Okay.
don't think there's a problem with that word. What I'm saying, what I see in in my work and my experience, I don't necessarily see that. Meaning the people that have experience with anxiety, stress, nervousness, and they have like an anxious disorder in some format, are not really having difficulties during this time because it's not new for them. They know what it feels like. They are able, and if they're getting help for it, if they're in therapy, then they can manage it. And I don't see them, oh, I'm so stressed out about COVID and things like that. The people that I do see are the ones that haven't experienced this before. The ones that don't understand when I don't have control, what that feels like and what that means, and that it is anxiety. When I don't know how I'm going to feed my family because I lost my job because of these different stressors, and then I don't feel safe walking outside because I'm a Black man or woman. Those types of things are not. I mean, that's where I see what you're saying, well, worsening of symptoms. That's when I see more of it. Not the people that have a history of anxious disorders and things like that, that have been getting treatment and have skills, coping skills to address those. The problem is most of us in America don't have those skills. No one teaches us this as children because they don't know how to do it. Our parents didn't know how to manage their emotions, especially in minority communities. It's, oh, keep it all in. Only talk about it with people at church, but then you can't trust them. Um, or sit around and self medicate. You go get high, or you drink some alcohol, right? All of those things are the way that they dealt with it, and that doesn't mean that, oh, it is intentionally wrong, harmful, or anything else. It's just all they knew. And so that's why I keep stressing the importance of trying something different and being willing to look at some ways to actually learn how to cope, not necessarily self-medicate.
What I would like for you to do is take some time to tell the audience how what they can come to you for, what kind of things, if they want to talk to you, if they want to hire you, if they want to reach out to you to ask you a couple of questions, just share what kind of a way you would attempt to help them. Of course, you would have to know what their situation is, but
So you
talk to that.
What therapy looks like and what it looks like to set up an appointment type thing?
That, and not just the specifics of that, but
Okay.
how it would work, how if they are going through an issue with their living situation, let's say, if they have a situation where it's kind of a negative situation, and in this stressful time, what would be your
recommendation?
tell them?
Okay, so typically, just to give an idea of what therapy looks like, just in general, because I think the stigma still and what's presented in the media, like on TV, like with the Ayana's Fix My Life type, because that's not therapy at all. Those things are misconstrued, and then it solidifies that stigma. So generally, what you would do is reach out to schedule an appointment. On the first appointment, that is when you get to know and you meet your therapist, right? You get to know and meet your therapist, but you find out what your comfort level is based on whatever they present. And I say that because every therapist is not going to be your therapist. It's not going to be a good fit. I'm not a good fit for everybody. I'm not the most traditional, and some people may not be okay with that. And that's okay with me. But I want people to be willing to find the work, just like you find a good doctor or a dentist or anyone that's caring for you may not always be the best one. So you got to do a little bit of work to find out what works for you, what you feel comfortable with. Then on that first session, it will be a lot of questions that are being asked to get to understanding of what I can, as a therapist, help you with and what you're going through at this moment. In that conversation, it'll be questions about family history, what you're currently experiencing, physical symptoms, even your general history, like as far as education, just all those things that they ask you when you go to the doctor. Because then they have to. It's the same type of thing because they have to understand what your hereditary symptoms are, what your environment looks like, because it all contributes to what's happening with you right now. And then for me, now I don't know if all therapists do that, but I feel like I don't want to have you come to me and talk to me and then you don't leave with anything on the first session because I'm trying to get to know you and see how I can help. So I, provide a tool based on what you're doing or what you're going through. And normally it's something that regards self-care, because that's a coping skill that you can always take with you for the rest of your life. If we learn how to adequately care for ourselves, and it's not that, oh, I need to take a vacation and go out of town, and oh, I got to go get a massage, and all those, drastic things that people see and then they always hashtag and self-care with. I don't mean that. I mean doing something that makes you laugh in the moment or something that makes you feel good. Just and that for me is, I like Zumba, and now I was a little sad, and I was so sad for about almost a year because Zumba wasn't existent for me because of the virus, right? So I had to find other ways, and being willing to find other ways to still get that same feeling that I get from there. That exercise stops my brain. I don't think about anything. I'm smiling. I get to twerk a little bit. It's fun. I meet people. It makes me feel good for that moment. I'm not thinking about other people's problems because I listen to them all day. I am able to just sweat it all out. But
Be in the moment, be in the spirit.
and that is exactly
Yes.
what we don't all know what that is for us. And so that's what therapy will do. Also, our histories through life we experience, right? We experience, and if it's good stuff, we want it to happen again. And if it's bad stuff, we try to protect ourselves from happening again. And so that is what drives our everyday.
Tell the audience the name of your practice, the name of your business.
My practice name is Adorned Counseling. I can be reached at www.adornedcounseling.com. And all of my contact information is there. The way that I do things, because I refuse, and I mean that wholeheartedly, because I try to practice what I preach, is I'm not going to work harder than you on something that you're working on for you, right? So if that's the case, I'm not going to sit there with you and say, okay, well, our next appointment is going to be this date at this time, and this is when, because right now our lives are chaotic, to say the least. We don't know what's going to happen tomorrow. We don't even know if we can go outside tomorrow. So all of my appointments are scheduled online. You can see my availability there. You can click it. And make what, if it works for you, you can even reschedule as long as it's more than 24 hours in advance online. So you don't have to do anything. All of my documentation is submitted online. And all the documentation has to be received first. I think people get a misconception about that too. It's just like a doctor. I have to have your consent for certain things. I have to make sure I educate you about your rights and all those different things. And I have to have documentation of that. So all of those things have to be submitted first. And so with all those things completed, it's really easy after that. I accept insurance and that, and they were really providing a lot of services with COVID for mental health care via telehealth with insurance. It was first time insurances is free. And there's no copay. Other ones you have copays, but it's still not as costly as you would imagine. And so, there are so many resources out there, that EAPs, employee assistance programs that pay for you to have a certain number of services.
And do you have a website where they can find all of those things, or where can they find it at?
That's based on your insurance and your employer.
The
employee assistance program. But my website, you will see what insurances I do accept. You can see that on there. But your insurance can, so if you ever have, you can have financial limitations and you need some services for you or your family, or you and your family, then you can contact your insurance provider and your employer and ask about EAP, employee assistance programs. And they'll give you like a certain number of sessions for free. And normally they'll give you a number of those, like within a year, you can get up to 3, depending on, I'm talking about Cigna. Cigna does that. All the insurances actually have that resource. So that's a great way to start in therapy. I actually used it before I was getting married, in premarital counseling. I went to counseling for that, and I used my EAP benefits, and it was vastly beneficial, and I'm still married, and that was a while ago. So it's helpful. So I just
and in these times, among the stresses, that's a very powerful thing. Yes, ma'am. We had talked about that earlier. Couples during this time being together sometimes is not the best thing.
no.
I mean, not all the time, and they're together more because maybe they're not at work, they're at home, so it makes it more difficult. Like the brother said earlier, he said some people love each other but don't like each other no more.
Mhm,
So it's some
mhm.
difficult times going on, but we're gonna find ways to get through this. Can you give us a closing comment on how to deal with stress and trauma from all the things that we encounter, we see on TV, and then we encounter? How can we continue to cope with these things?
Well, I got a long comment for that
Yes,
one.
ma'am. Yes, ma'am.
Because I think, well, I know you can't address something if you don't recognize what the problem is. And so if you don't know what stress looks like and how it presents with you physically and mentally, you won't be able to address it until it's sometimes too late, or it's gotten to the point where you're not able to function at your best. So it's important to recognize what your body does and how it responds and what that means. So I got some ways to describe it in regards to physical, emotional, and behavioral things that stress presents as and what it looks like. I'm gonna say it fast. Okay. So if you're having frequent headaches, migraines, back pain, sweating, nausea, indigestion, chest pain, and fatigue. That's the physical ones, right? So you have those things, but that's not something like a health condition that you normally have. So you notice that you're starting to have, a lot of heartburn and stomach problems, excessive migraines. That could be a physical response to stress. Okay. Emotional and cognitive meaning your thinking. All right. So if you are worrying, irritable, angry, you have limited motivation, difficulty concentrating, mood instability. So sometimes you here, sometimes you down here. Then decreased sex drive and memory problems. That's your body's response emotionally and cognitively to stress. Now, all of that is because of the hormones that our bodies release. The stress hormones go focus on different things to keep you from, like, to respond to the crisis, like fight or flight and freeze, right? But if your body's always there, it can't produce the other things that relax us or makes us feel good, those happy endorphins. It can't do that, and that's why it affects your sex drive and things like that. Behavioral, nail biting, constant thoughts about stressors, restlessness, teeth grinding. You might not realize it, but you have some difficulties with your teeth, and or certain stuff hurt that could be in your sleep. It could be happening throughout the day when you least expect it, and you probably won't notice. If you have disrupted sleep, because when you're anxious and stressed, it's difficult to fall asleep because you can't relax.
But let me ask this.
Yes.
Stress is a part of life. There's no way around it. I mean, maybe it's more now, but we've always had stress.
Yes.
We've always had to deal with it. There's a saying, only the strong survive, which is a macho statement. But isn't it just, you're going to have to go through some things. You just got to find a way to keep grinding.
Well, there is a point where our bodies respond because it's too much too. Anxiety is a healthy emotion because then that motivates us, it drives us, it makes us do something about it, right? And stress can be a form of anxiety, but when it gets to the point where it's chronic and it affects your functioning, that's when you need to, one, visit a medical doctor, because you are having those physical responses, right? Or a mental health professional to find some coping skills to manage it. Because we all do deal with stress, and we're going to for the rest of our lives in some way. But if it gets to the point that you're not managing it and it's ruling you and you're not able to control it, it can kill you.
Yeah.
And your relationships if you're not first.
Hypertension, heartburn, all of those particular things.
Heart disease, stroke, the stuff that Black people go through a lot, right?
Yes.
Because we don't manage our stress
Yes.
effectively. That's where it comes from.
And exercise,
Mhm.
of course, maintaining our weight,
Mhm.
and
Diet too.
yes,
Mhm.
and keeping yourself, I guess, mentally active. You can't just be sit on a bump on a log and watch social media or television. Yes.
So or just like what I was saying earlier, it's making you angry. You can't keep sitting there watching it all day.
Yeah.
It's not benefiting you at that point. You're not getting no new knowledge. You're just getting upset.
So watch a little bit less, ladies and gentlemen, of the riot and the COVID relief, COVID situation, and let's get through this. Let's get through this. This is the Sourceseeker Hour, ladies and gentlemen. We've had a great show. Our beautiful sister Jennifer, Adorn Counseling.
Yes, sir.
You want to tell them one more time, phone number or whatever you would like to tell them?
Sure. If you have any questions, you can call my office. My phone number is 832-721-5559. You could also text that phone number. You actually speak with me directly. If you call, you will talk to my assistant, but either way, you'll get some good information. If you want to know more about me, it is more detailed on my website at adornedcounseling.com. And if you don't know how to spell it, let me spell it for you. ADORNED counseling, COUNSELING.com. So Adorn kind of like the Miguel song.
Yes, ma'am. Blessings. This is the Sourceseeker Hour. We've had a great show. I'm your host, Baruti Carl Alexander, with our guest, Jennifer Cain, Adorn Counseling. And we'll see you next week. Thank you, everybody. Thank you. Have a good evening.
Good night.
All right. I'm going to talk.